This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Hi friends, I'm Carrie Jo, and this is Holy Chuckles Podcast. This is a space for honest faith, lived experiences, and shining a light in the places we've learned to hide. I'm not here to explain faith. I'm here to live it out loud. So take a breath and let's make room for what's real. Welcome back to Holy Chuckles Podcast. I'm really glad you're here. I'm still talking about 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 32 and 33. And I'm still talking about the unnamed man that I am calling Bob. I'm still talking about him because I'm still in awe of his strength, of his obedience, and of him honoring what God asked him to do. And I look around and we are all this unnamed man. Now I want you to think, what if every day in every situation, whether we knew the person or not, whether they knew us or not, we could be an unnamed man in their lives and obey God with whatever God wants us to do for his people, for others. Because not all the time, as an unknown man, are we going to be like Bob and have to deliver news from God. And not just news, bad news, not great news. A message from God with words that say, I will cut short your strength and the strength of your priestly house. Or all your descendants will die in the prime of life. What if God is asking us to deliver a message of hope? What if God's message is a message of you're aligned and I hear you? Yes, you hear me. Yes, I am with you. What if that's your message you're supposed to deliver? How awesome would that be? I know I've told the story of the homeless man David that I met. And I met David because I obeyed. Because that day that I was doing my devotional, reading my Bible and talking to God, and I heard a man outside of my apartment yelling across the road, and I didn't ignore it. Something told me to get up and go see what it was or what was going on. And when I went out on my balcony and I saw a man with a cane walking, and something just tugs at my heart, go see what's going on. And I even said out loud, let me go take a shower. And I felt this push. No, we're not taking a shower. We're going to go look. And then I said, okay, I'll go get my clothes on, but I'm going to ride my scooter over there. I have a little electric scooter that I ride around the area. And I felt another nudge that said, no, get in your vehicle. But I don't want to. I have to go down the parking garage. It takes forever. It's a pain. But still, that nudge was there that that's what I needed to do. I proceeded to get dressed. I went to my vehicle. I went down the parking garage and I went across the street and met David. And I spent all that day with David. And even though we exchanged names, I was an unknown man to David. And that day, God had me bless David all day long with helping him with food, helping him with the hotel room, and just really being kind and loving to him. And I was so appreciative of that lesson. And then the next day, God used me again to drop off food, to give money. God made sure I had all the provisions I needed to help the people that were in that area that he called me to help. And I did exactly that. But the unnamed individuals that I had helped, they also did something for me. God used them to show me obedience. God used them to show me that, yes, I am talking to you. Yes, you are aligned with me. And every single one of those encounters that I had with the homeless, each one of them gave the same message: God bless you, or Jesus loves you. Every single one of them. And most of them, it was also followed with a hug. So God used both them and myself as unnamed individuals to give a message to each other. And one of those messages, I remember I was talking to a woman and a man. It was Stephanie and Ethan. And I had stopped where Stephanie and Ethan were because God had nudged me to do it. And it was right after I had left David. And I didn't even want to stop. I was like, God, I'm not doing it. I don't want to. I want to go get a breakfast taco. I need an emotional break. It has been a lot the last 2 days. I don't want to stop. But again, I was pushed to do so. And I had already followed through and obeyed the day before and that morning when I was with David. And so I was going to continue that pattern because that pattern, which was a new pattern for me, it felt aligned. And so I was going to continue with that pattern. And I did. So I stopped and I'm talking to the young man, Ethan, and I asked him, why are you out here in the streets? And he said that he had just gotten out of jail. He'd gotten himself in some trouble. And this is where he was right now. I looked at him and I specifically said, and I don't even know why I said it, when is the last time you talked to your mother? And Ethan said her birthday was yesterday. And I was pushed to tell Ethan, call your mother. And after I said, call your mother, I said to him, Ethan, people's hearts change, people change, circumstances change. And I spoke that from experience because I was right in the middle of changing, my heart changing, my life changing, my experiences changing, my circumstances changing. And Ethan said, I'm going to give her a call. I don't know what happened to Ethan. I sure hope that he did call his mom, and I sure hope that they reunited, but I have no idea. But God used me that day to talk to Ethan. God didn't use me in a dramatic way. God was able to use me in this way because my heart was open. I had been in the middle of my life changing. I had had experiences that made sense but didn't make sense. And I was in the process of alignment and understanding what my life was before, which was chaotic, uncertainty, survival. And I was feeling what my life was going to be, which was grounded, calm, aligned. And so in these moments, all I knew was to obey. Because the day before, all I did was obey. And I felt the difference in my heart, in my soul, in my body. And then that morning I obeyed and I felt the same. And so I continued that pattern throughout the day. What I didn't expect was for any of them to be an unnamed man to me. And David was that for me. One of the questions I asked David was, where were you sleeping before? And he said, near the Fair Park area. And by car, that's a good 30 minutes away. And then I asked him, why did you come to this area? And his response, God told me, and I go where God tells me to go. And I thought to myself in that moment, if this man could obey God and find a way, being a homeless man, find a way over to an area where God told him to go and he could find a way to obey God. There shouldn't be any reason that I can't obey God. And so David, that unnamed man for me, gave me the message of obedience, gave me the understanding that God talks to every single one of us. It's, are we listening and are we going to obey? And David listened and David obeyed. And then I listened and I obeyed. And all we did those 2 days was show each other God's love. And then God gave me the gift of showing other people God's love. God gave me the gift of giving hope and showing others that God is with them in every step of the way in their life. And I know that because, again, when I was with Stephanie and Ethan, and I had had some cash in my pocket that I shouldn't have had, but God made sure I did. And I gave it to them. And I said to them, and I didn't want to say this, but I did. And I started out by saying, this is going to sound weird, but I'm just going to say it. God told me to give this to you. And Ethan started to cry, and he looked at Stephanie, and he said, just 2 days ago, were we not talking about God for 3 hours? And now here you stand, and you gave us money. You can't tell me that wasn't God. And I needed those experiences to experience God a different way. Because how I had experienced God growing up was that if you fail, you would be punished. If you did wrong, it wasn't a lesson. It wasn't a mistake. It was hellfire and brimstone. But here I was standing in front of a young man who had made mistakes in his life, and he had paid his consequences by serving his time. And just 2 days ago, he was talking about God. Had I never met David, I would have never met Ethan and Stephanie. Had I never obeyed God and used the resources that God made available to me to help David, I would have never met Ethan and Stephanie. I would have never been standing in front of them, handing them money, saying, this is from God. And in that moment, had I not obeyed God and used those exact words, that money and that message would not have affected Ethan as much as it did. Because I know now that God needed Ethan to know, yeah, you made some mistakes, but you paid your consequences. And I am always here for you. And I will always provide. It may not be in the way that we want or the things that we want, or it to be as grand as we want, but God is always there. And for some reason, Ethan needed to know that because Ethan and Stephanie had just had a lengthy conversation about God. And then here I stood 2 days later saying, here you go, this is from God, and Ethan, call your mom. We are all unnamed individuals. That's what this man was. That's why he had no name. It was about the message, and it was about the unnamed man hearing God and obeying. It was about the unnamed man hearing God and not saying, are you sure, me? No, I didn't hear that right. That's just the crazy part in my head talking. That's just me talking to myself. No, he honored it. He honored himself by knowing his alignment with God. He honored God by obeying God. He honored the people of Israel by taking that message to Eli. And he also honored Eli because Eli was ignoring God. Eli wasn't aligned with God in those moments. So he honored Eli by obeying God and going there and giving Eli the message. Because, yeah, God could have just done what God wanted to do with Eli and Eli's family, but that's how loving God is. God didn't just cut off Eli. God didn't just do what needed to be done for the people of Israel. God said, Eli, you cut off communication, but I'm still going to speak to you. I'm still going to honor you. I'm still going to show you that I love you and have a conversation with you. Yeah, it might not be the conversation that you want to hear, but I'm going to go out of my way, link up to another connect, and have that connection come talk to you and give you a message. Because one, I need you to know how serious this is. Two, I need you to know that you're important to me. This relationship is important to me, and it's important enough to tell you what's happening. Even though Eli wasn't honoring God by obeying, God still showed Eli unconditional love, the love of a parent that said, I don't like what you're doing. I don't agree with it. You're not obeying, but I'm not going to disown you. Yes, there are consequences to what you're doing. And yes, you and your family will have consequences because of your actions or lack thereof your actions. But I love you and you're important to me. And I'm still going to have this conversation whether you want to hear it or not. And I love that this message also shows how much God values each and every one of us and loves each and every one of us. And that God always deals with anything that's going on with us in love. God showed the unnamed man love by choosing him to deliver this message to Eli. God showed the unnamed man how aligned he was by coming to him and saying, I trust you, and I know that you will obey, and you will honor me, yourself, Eli, the people of Israel, by going and giving this message. That is love. When you believe in someone like that, that is love. And then God showed Eli and his family love by sending this man, to go have a direct conversation with Eli. God showed Eli love because God didn't cut off Eli. He explained it. I remember when my mom would spank me. After she spanked me, she would either set me on the bed or she would kneel down and get eye to eye with me. And she would ask me, do you understand why you are in trouble? And I would answer. And yes, every single time I knew why I was in trouble. Even when I was doing whatever I was doing to get in trouble, I knew I was going to get in trouble. And I would answer. And she would say, okay, I just want to make sure you understand why you were punished. And then she would end that conversation with, I love you. no matter what you do, I love you. And that to me was God sending the unnamed man to Eli to have that conversation, but also to say, yes, there are consequences, but I love you and I value you. I'm going to tell you why. And we're going to have a discussion about it. It may be a one-way discussion, but you're the one that chose not to talk to me, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to talk to you. Reading these verses, it's helped me understand while I'm out in the world and I'm in contact with people, because whether you believe it or not, every single one of us was created by God. Every single one of us is a piece of God. So while I live and breathe on this earth, I am going to make sure that I stay in alignment with God and I stay in alignment with myself, that I obey God even when I don't want to, even when it seems off the wall, even when it's uncomfortable. And I'm also going to continue being that unnamed individual in the lives that I come across. Whether it's telling a man in the taco shop that his hair is beautiful, or helping a homeless man named David, or giving a message to Ethan about calling his mom, every interaction, I'm going to think about the unnamed man that God sent to Eli and remember God is using every single one of us every single day to touch the lives around us. And I'm going to make sure the lives I touch, I'm touching them in love, kindness, positivity, because I want every single person around me to know and feel God's love.